Hello all, welcome to our presentation on RTSP, Real-Time Streaming Protocol, and RTP, Real-Time Transfer Protocol. Real-Time Streaming Protocol (RTSP) is used to establish and control media sessions between client and server. RTSP acts as a network remote control for multimedia servers. RTSP uses TCP to maintain an end-to-end connection, and messages are sent by the client to the server, some from server to the client.
Having discussed the theory of the protocol, let's move to the client-side socket-based programming. Here, as we have this command into the command prompt, the local host is given the server address, the 5540 is the server port, 5541 is the RTP port, and movie file is given the file name. As we have written all this constant into the client function, we go to the client.py file. Here we have all these constants which are initialized, and we have init function where all the variables as initialized. This function is used to create the GUI which that is displayed as the output. The setup button is required, the start button, the play and the pause button is required, and the tear down button is required. We have a setup button which is used as the where the state is equal to the initial state, then only we can set up the movie. If there is so similarly in play and pause button we can see, and similarly in tear down button, if there is this setup tear down, then only we can tear down the function. Here in setup movie we see that if the state equal to the initial state, then we can set up the movie. If here in the exit client, if setup button is in tear down state, then we can call this destroy function that will terminate the whole process. The pause movie, in it states that if the state is equal to the playing state, then we can pause the movie. The play movie function states that if the state is equal to the ready state, then we can play. Listen RTP function. It states that this function RTP packet, it states this RTP packet. This is a separate file RTP packet.py. It states that we have a header as a array of size header underscore size which is equal to 12. So we have index from 0 to 11 which we need to complete. So header is divided into 4 parts. First 2 bits, 1 bit, 1 bit and 4 bit. So this is equal to total 8 bit. Similarly, this header is divided into 2 parts. The sequence number is divided into 2 parts. The timestamp is divided into 4 parts. And similarly, we know that the SSRC is divided into 4 parts. Now we will initialize the header of this as the header. here the decode function which states that which takes the argument as the header and returns the string. Similarly, we can see in the payload. The version function uses version. The version function gives us version sequence number. Similarly, gives us the sequence number. The payload will return the string which is the payload, which is the actual information, and the get packet which contains the header as well as the payload. As we return from this function, now this data should be decoded. So
which is the main file for our server. So here is the main function for it, in which we are assigning server port to the first argument to the input to the terminal. So if the server port is correct, then it will execute this statement, this server port assigning statement, or it will execute this print statement. After assigning this, we are creating an RTSP socket. Then we will bind this socket to the server port, and then this listen statement is for the maximum number of clients that we can take at a time. So after this, we will achieve client information by RTSP socket, and we will accept it, and then this server worker file is called. So here in server there are 4 states in which server works. That is, one is setup, second is play, third is pause, and the fourth and the last one is teardown. So initially we have put our state to the initial state, that is init. Here both of these functions define this init function. After this, this is the function where process RTSP request for the data. After this, we determine whether the request type is of setup. If the request type is of setup, then we move the state to the init, and after printing the statement, that is processing setup in the server terminal, we will be setting up the video stream on our client terminal. So after that, we check the next state, which is request type double equals to self dot play, which means if the request type is of play, then we check if the state of our function is equals to ready, then we will print processing play. After that, we will call our socket, and we will reply our RTSP to this server. After this, we will print our response code as OK, which is equal to 200. Then we will check for the next event, which is the request type is equal to pause. Now, for the video to be paused, first it has to be played. So we will check if the state was equal to playing, then we will proceed with this function. We will print processing pause in the server terminal. Then we will pause our video streaming, which is from the client terminal. Then the final state of our function is teardown. Teardown is the function which acts when we call it. It doesn't require any if or else condition regarding its previous state. So this function will close our video running terminal, because this will close our server also, and this will give a code of 200 whenever it runs successfully. So this was the functions of the server worker. Now we will proceed to running our code. So these are code files. So here we proceed to run our code. Firstly, we will open first terminal, which will serve as our server terminal. Then we will assign server port to be 1027. After this, our server is up running. So let's proceed to the next terminal, which is our client terminal. So for client terminal, we will run client launcher.py. We will assign this IP address to our computer, and this is the port number on which our server is running, and this is the file. This is the file which we will run. So as we can see, this GUI terminal has been opened up. So placing both the terminals side by side, this we can see the activities happening on our terminal. So let's first set up this video connection between client and server. As we can see, the server has been into the state of setup. Now let's play the video. As you can see, the video is running and the process of the server or the state of the server has been changed to play. Now as we click pause, we can see that our video has been paused and the server has gone into the state of pause. Now again, if we play our video, we can see the server has again changed to the play process. Now the final state of our server, which will be tear down, will close our video. So as we can see, the server has been run down to the tear down process, and that was our assignment. So thank you for your attention.